whether it intentionally or not, it's informed by Lord of the Rings, the Shire, the innocence of the Shire. It's all nature, it's all green, and everyone's children, you know, they're all children, and it's the innocence and naivety. You go into the Deku Tree, and suddenly there's this real shift in tone that I think is almost like, you know, how fairy tales and nursery rhymes have a darkness to them to inform kids about the world they're about to enter. And it becomes much more mature and much more, there's a real threat. And that is indicated by the lack of any motif and thematic music. You know, you're not in Kansas anymore.
Yes. And that moment's actually really striking. It also articulates, I think, how video games are able to, I think, get away with an incredible amount of stylistic divergence, you know, where you can have games with really radically different stylistic moments, and it's kind of not a problem in the same way as it might be for film. But you're right, you go into the Deku Tree, you've had the Kokiri Forest music, which is quite twee, it's got a bit of harpsichord in it, quite sort of decorative music, it's that sort of bucolic thing. And you go into Deku Tree, and instead, you know, there isn't a melody. Instead, that piece works by having a limited selection of notes, but they're not heard in the same order. They just, apart from when the cue as a whole repeats, it just uses a set of notes that are just ambient. It has a coherence to it because it's only that set of 6 or whatever it is notes, I can't remember, and it's only really one sound. So, but it doesn't repeat. It doesn't have. It's not memorable. You mentioned that you don't necessarily remember some of the dungeon music so well. I think that's deliberate. You're not supposed to remember. You might remember how it makes you feel, but it's not the memorable stuff. It's not the tunes for the characters or rather the tunes for the well-known locations and things like that. It's doing a different job. So even within that one example, you see quite a variety of the ways that video game music is working.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we could do a whole. We could do a whole 2 hours on this, and maybe that's something we should come back to in the future. We should do a revisit on Ocarina because it probably does deserve a lot more of our attention, a lot more prior research. Because, you know, I mean, it's such an important part of my life. It does make me quite emotional to think about it because it was informative, like a fairy tale, like a nursery rhyme. One of my friends pointed out that the experience of playing that game is telling you something about what the experience of growing up is going to be like. Because when you're young Link, everyone's laughing, everyone responds to you with a bit of a twee patronization, but they're quite nice to you. You go into the Temple of Time, you take the, I believe it's the Master Sword, is it? You know, and you grow up, he ages for 7 years, and you come out and everything is dark and there are problems to solve and there are no friendly faces. And that has been what the experience of growing up has been like for people, you know?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, that moment of when you walk out of the temple and the market has been, you know, decimated, and you've got the screaming sort of re-deads, the mummies. It's shocking. And again, the soundscape is part of that because it's musical absence at that point. You know, the lovely twee music of the castle town is gone. That's gone. Yeah. Instead, howling wind. Yeah. Screaming mummies, right? Yeah. And it's just, you go, wow, it's such a shocking moment. But yeah, that analogy of kind of growing up in it is definitely there, and the whole thing has that slightly sort of melancholic air to it. So yeah.
And I do think I think it's a miraculous game of sorts that it was, you know, because it came out of Japan and it looks like I'm going to get, if this gets out on the internet, I'm going to get ransacked for not knowing not having done my due diligence. But, you know, it's a Japanese game, but it looks heavily influenced by the kind of European mythology that we grew up with. So seeing that go through that lens and come out again in a way that was like really profound, I guess it's a testament to how much we can learn from each other and how much you can see what your own culture's like once you've seen it through another lens, you know?